Thank you, Sophie, for your presentation, and Ingrid for chairing the session. So my name is Thomas Vogel. I'm the co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion track. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce Barbora Buhnova as our keynote speaker. So Ingrid and I are very happy that Barbora will give this keynote because she works in both fields. Like, she does work on research on software architecture, but also on diversity, particularly in software engineering and software architecture. So Barbora is currently an associate professor at Masaryk University in Brno, Czech Republic. She's well known in the community for research on software architecture, recently also on critical infrastructure and digital forensics. She's the steering committee chair of the International Conference on Software Architecture. And besides her computer scientist, scientific research on software architecture, she's also passionate about tech education, and particularly to increase diversity in the software architecture and engineering community. So in this context, she co-founded Chiquitas, which is an initiative to make IT skills more accessible to youth and women. And this initiative has a huge impact in Czech Republic. So they teach to especially young girls IT skills, and they have more than 30,000 graduates so far. So really a huge impact. And finally, Barbora is also active in multiple other initiatives to engage more women in tech, like at the within Informatics Europe, or she's vice chair of the EU Cost Action EU Game. And she's also co-chair of this year's Women Courage Conference that will happen next week. And maybe Barbora will also advertise this a bit in her talk. And so I think we are looking forward to a keynote very much, because of her perspective from both angles she can provide. And so without further ado, I hand over to Barbora for her keynote on why the wrong people choose to study software architecture and the right people do not. Please, Barbora.
Thank you very much. Before I share my slides, I want to thank you for this platform to share what we are doing also in Chiquitas. The topic of the talk was not selected to include like gender specifically, but of course, with the Chiquitas, the organization we are running, it has some experience from that lens, and you'll see that it has the gender perspective to it. I also want to thank Sophia for her presentation. I actually was like holding myself not to ask questions, because I think we would spend another hour discussing this topic, and I will be very happy if we can then continue some contact with Sophia on the topic. Okay, so I will switch to my presentation. So welcome everybody to this keynote. The idea of this talk is to share some insights I'm having from actually working within the software architecture community for quite some time, and also having an opportunity to discuss the theme of competencies in software engineering, and why certain competencies were actually underrepresented while others are overrepresented. I have this opportunity to discuss it with many different people, so I will share some of those like lessons learned and my insights. So this is not a scientific presentation, but I hope it will be interesting to you. So the theme itself is a bit controversial, right? It actually comes from my conversations with Ivar Jakobsen. He has a small son, so he is one of those like talking to small children. We were chatting that this is like a nice way to talk to children about like why the wrong people choose software engineering and the right people do not, as you might influence the younger generations. But I like adopted this and realized that I see this parallel to software architecture, and that's something I would like to share. From like my personal perspective, like I would say the theme that is very dear to my heart is bridging communities to foster innovation. It was mentioned here that I'm a general co-chair of the Women Courage Conference, which is happening next week. So I chose this as a theme of the conference. So it's the theme of the overall conference. the bridging communities to foster innovation. And what I like to add is that this is on track towards democratization of innovation, because only when you actually bring people from different communities and give them opportunity to have a voice in the computer science community and software engineering community, you truly democratize innovation, because it's really tech that's bringing innovation to other disciplines. Besides the roles that I mentioned, I'm working very closely with industrial partners. So that's also like one thing that I think helped me a lot to see the underrepresentation of certain skill sets in the companies that I'm working with. So when we look at that and the topic itself, I think to like summarize one point that I would like to make in the talk is that I believe that the reason why people self-select away from tech, referring to their competencies. So like maybe I don't want to spend the whole day at a computer. I don't want to spend the whole day alone. I want to be the one like bridging ideas. I want to be the one bringing the human element into my work. So these reasons why they self-select away from computing are the very reasons why we need them in. And that's more so true for software architecture, because this is the skill sets of like people who really want to work with bridging communities, integrating different perspectives, understanding different communities, having this multidisciplinary mindset. And we have some of these people in the software architecture community, and I think many of them are in this conference, but it's actually not the majority of people, because typically what is the community of software architects is that it's a subset of software engineers, and software engineers is a subset of programmers, and it's a subset of those kids that were not demotivated by the teacher when they were just debugging a piece of code and were maybe frustrated by that activity, not imagining that being in that profession in the future is something different. So we have this kind of like a funnel through our education system that is actually like we are a subset of, like this system that filtered out many like people with many competencies that we would like to see in our community. So I would like to like start with actually like overviewing what is a software architecture. And I think like we all have a shared understanding, even like a session that was in like just before this one was about quality attributes. So this is something known to you, but I think it's still worth saying to like draw the whole storyline of like what message I want to bring today. So basically like something that worked as an analogy like 15 years ago was that it's quite similar to something you can imagine in construction engineering. So it's like kind of like a template or structure or blueprint of a building you want to create. But this like 15 years ago, even 20 years ago in actually scientific community, this stopped being true, because we actually moved from systems that are standalone, more like a city plan. And when you think about like an urban architect, like a person really planning a city, they do not care anymore like what the buildings look like. What they care about is the quality of living. And that's like what brings us to those quality attributes, right? So that's the same thing like we are now when we are building architecture, we only care about the quality of living in a sense within that system integrated ecosystem. What I think is important, and again, we know it as a scientist, but it's like just good to like insert it into the storyline, is that architecture is not its blueprint. What architecture, like, and I think like it's good to say, because up until like 2000, we thought that architecture is its blueprint. We thought that architecture is those structures within which we actually like define some module, they communicate with each other, and that's architecture. But like around 2000, we actually shifted in mindset. And since then, we actually moved the definitions into saying that software architecture is actually the set of significant design decisions that shape the software system. And it is really those like design decisions that kind of like becoming a radar for a software architect to be designing software architecture. I also like the definitions like this one, saying that software architecture is those decisions that you would wish to get right at the beginning. which indicates that actually software architecture is something we are doing when we still have incomplete information, which makes it more challenging and also more interesting to many of us. So what is good to understand that actually when you think about a software architect, it's a person who, rather than giving you a template of a system and saying fill the blanks and that's your system architecture, the software architect is asking questions, and it's asking questions like, what is truly the purpose of your system, and who are your stakeholders, and how do they prioritize what is important to them, so that the quality criteria becomes something like the values in company culture. So it's that radar that is driving actually all those decisions that the core group of people within the company, your most senior and experienced engineers, can agree on, that are the most important things. I think it's also good to say along that story, what makes architecting difficult nowadays and why it deserves to be a discipline on its own. It's because nowadays systems are meeting this physical world. So it's not the cyber anymore, it's cyber physical. And so any mistake we do upfront where we still do not have enough information to know what's happening and what's the threat that we'll be facing in the future, we need to make those critical decisions while knowing that everything is interconnected with each other, that there are elements that can actually be untrusted, that can harm your system intentionally. And we still do not know exactly what these threats and future challenges might be when we think about architecting our system and designing those primary principles. So it is actually something that if you attended a keynote of Avaris Rashid here at X 2 years ago, it was in Paris, that he used the term engineering for the unknown. And it's something I adopted and I use a lot now when I explain my research to other people, because it works so well. So this is a framework within which I see my research. It's actually engineering for the unknown, so that while in the past, maybe it was sufficient to be engineering our systems for problem avoidance, it's not anymore sufficient. We need to engineer the system that are aware of problems being in the system. So it's not about I just do the avoidance focus and then let's trust that nothing wrong will happen. So nowadays we need to anticipate problems, and we need to be able to engineer systems that are able to live with problems inside of them. And these can be intentional and unintentional, which is what my research is about. Why I'm mentioning my research is because I told you that I have this theme of bridging communities to foster innovation. And I see that nowadays in the setup of software architecture, innovation comes from bridging communities and bridging disciplines. And it's so strong when we have people in software architecture who are really perspective oriented and who can integrate insights from different disciplines and just put them together. So just a few examples. I have, for example, my PhD student working on this recognizing that an attack is ongoing in a system. And what is interesting is that together with Martin, we are focusing on actually insider attacks. And it's so interesting that while we so often, when you have this technical specialist mind, we think about protecting the system, and that's all the focus. But when you start thinking with in this context of social science, you realize that actually the most vulnerable part of the system is its employees. And that nowadays, most of the really crucial attacks are happening through actually involving the unintentionally the insiders of the organization. And now you need really social sciences and people who are strong in psychology to work on the solutions together to actually detect that there is an ongoing attack. It often takes a long time, 6 months, where the credentials are being harvested and certain steps and doors are being opened. Another example that I work with Lukáš, which is a PhD student in our lab as well, on the forensic ready software systems and software design, where you actually want to create, when you want to actually already when you build the architecture of the system, you want to do the major decisions so that later when a problem occurs, you are able to actually look up and find out like why it happened, how it happened, who was involved and who is responsible. And that's something that like, it's so funny that nowadays we are not able to do that, right? We are again like engineering systems for problem avoidance, but when the problem happens, we are not really able to find out like what happened. We find some logs, but these logs are not admissible at court because we do not work with lawyers who would tell you, no, this is not, there are certain rules for digital evidence to be admissible at court. And if you do not comply to that rule, to that rules, like your logs are just useless. They cannot be used in the process of really understanding what has happened. So we are really working with lawyers on this work, and it's very interesting because we are really like learning so much from each other. And the third example is trust in autonomous ecosystems. This is, I would say, like the strongest focus of my research recently. I think you've seen some talks on this in past conferences. We also had an ICSI New Ideas paper and Software Engineering Society paper on that. And it's very interesting because when you start thinking about trust in autonomous ecosystems, then you really need to realize that like autonomous agents, like two autonomous driving cars, will need to decide in the future whether they trust each other. And they will need to learn from us humans how we build trust through reputation, through knowing that I trust somebody who trusts this other agent, through different like observations and prediction what that person is going to do. And if they don't do it, I mistrust that person. And these are again like very interesting ways of like demonstrating that in the end, what we need as software architects to do the difficult decisions right is need for extensive mindset stretch, need people who are really from different communities, and us as architects being able to integrate, understand, and integrate the insights they are bringing into the table. So this brings us to this question, like what shall be the competencies of a software architect? If you ask in a company, then often what they say is that they should know all different databases, they should be able to work with all different frameworks, etc. Because they understand software architects as a subset of software engineers and software engineers as a subset, and like as I describe it. Well, ultimately, who we need in the software architecture community, and not only in research, but also in industry, is people who have the ability to understand, envision, trade-off, strategize, have the breadth of knowledge rather than like narrow expertise, are really good in communication, leadership, decision-making, and most importantly, are having very good awareness and being able to prevent cognitive biases that they, as human beings, will always be having. So like ultimately, if we say that software architecture is that shared understanding of your most valuable experts in the company, then the more diverse they are, the stronger the architecture is going to be. And that is like one of the like takeaways that I believe that we should be passing to our education system. That is really like filtering like as software architects, somebody who needs to first show that they are specialists and good in one certain discipline to get to the point where they can become architects. This takes me to that really like the core connected to Chiquitas. So when you think about that, like I believe that, or not I believe that, but like when you look at works of people in psychology, they typically like have different traits, like personality traits or skill set traits, and they can really like position people in different groups or different countries or different genders, ethnicities, age, along these different lines. And I like this skill set comparison to demonstrate the message that I want to bring. And that is like this distinction of like people who are rather like single discipline specialists and targeted versus people who are closer to being multidisciplinary and more perspective oriented, more like, you know, like integrating different things. And to me, like the problem is that we have this like skill set of people who are, sorry, I just switch the presentation because I seem to be putting notes. Yeah. To one and the other. So I'll just switch and we'll continue. Okay, so I'll just reshare. Okay, so I think that like what we see a lot that while we would like to have people on the software architecture really like along these lines, closer maybe to the perspective and multidisciplinary side of it, we are currently like left with these people being a subset of rather this like more target and single disciplinary people. And that is like very natural because when you look at our education system, it actually starts with filtering the children in the elementary school based on whether they like coding and debugging. And that's something that is like more appealing to this like target and single discipline oriented kids than those who are more like integrators and they like to really like bring different pieces together. So that's something that I feel as a problem. So like it really goes back to the education on that elementary school level, and then the fact that we are only filtering. So like when you talk to people who are rather multidisciplinary and are in the field, what they will, many of them, and I think really like most of them tell you is that they first needed to prove that they are good specialists to be allowed to be generalists. And that's, I think, like one of the problems of our community, like overall of software engineering, that there is this funnel to get to a place where you are actually allowed to be multidisciplinary and bring the competencies that software architecture in the end needs the most. It's not, I think it's just not the coincidence that like often when I work within Chiquitas, I work with girls, I see many girls on that perspective side who often tell me, yeah, I did not choose software engineering, even if I like it, because I'm a multidisciplinary. That's the reason why I didn't choose it, because I see it as something that people need to be single disciplinary and need to really like this direction. Otherwise, they will not thrive. And that's something I did not want to go for. So I also like have this slide, even with people like position, genders along these traits, like women often are closer to their perspective and multidisciplinary side. And we can really like discuss like what is the reasons. There are many opinions, and it will be a combination of factors for sure. Some people like opt for or like argue that it's rather on the side of like society expectations, that they need to take care of everything and take care of children, take care of everything, and so they actually like develop these skills. But other people are saying that there are actually the ways how we are wired differently, like the hemispheres are wired differently, or the testosterone in men is actually promoting that like driven and target oriented behaviors. But certainly there will be a combination of factors, and you always have like individuals along those distributions. So you never can say that woman is such and man is such. These are just like the tendencies of the overall groups and distributions. Now, one more thing is that in the end, like in the industry, we want diversity of skill sets and perspectives and talents and beliefs, right? We do not want to like target gender balance as the ultimate goal. But let's realize that if we see strong gender imbalance, then it is a symptom that we very likely do not have balance on the way of skill sets and perspectives and talents. So it is like a very good indicator that something is maybe wrong on the bottom. In that way, like I wanted to like pose this, help with this, like showing in perspective of like how we are leaving those perspective individuals out. And I did not like give too much insight into it. So ultimately, when you look at like a target versus perspective oriented individual, so the target oriented individual like is driven by delivering really like focusing and delivering. And so when you present them with like a very complex problem, what they naturally do is that they actually decompose the problem into sub-problems and go solving them one by one, because that's a way to achieve, to deliver sooner. While perspective-oriented individuals are rather like first, they pause and think. They only observe and they try to understand all the factors in very big breath, also factors that are coming from the past, factors that might influence the solution in the future. And they actually, in the first, when you see this curve, feel also anxious about not moving forward because they are mapping their problem space. And it like feels like they cannot allow themselves to move forward before they like have this feeling that, okay, I understand the context enough. Now I'm ready to move forward. Now, like if you have these two individuals in the classroom and you have a teacher, then the teacher actually is more familiar with this curve. So as like they map and kind of like project that curve to what they see as a majority group in computer science, this ability to really structure, decompose, go and isolate and solve sub-problem in isolation, when they are when they are facing somebody in a classroom who it really like needs time and they have this feeling like it's too much, it's too complex, then this feeling like it's too complex does not mean that they are less capable of solving the problem. It only means that they just have different problem solving strategy. They just need more time at the beginning. And what often happens in these classrooms is that the teacher just navigates these kids out of the computer science classroom. And that's at least what we see in Chiquitas when we are working with women, because so often these are the stories we are hearing. Another like interesting aspect is that these perspective-oriented individuals who we so much need in software architecture are often as little children interested in multiple disciplines. So again, I know it a lot from the girls we are working with in Chiquitas, where they tell us, yeah, I really liked math and I really liked computer science, but I also really like geography and languages and arts and biology. So given that, like, I didn't really feel welcome in a computer science classroom, even if I liked it, it was very easy to just dismiss this direction and go into biology because I like them all. So the fact that these people are multidisciplinary is actually making it more unlikely that they will resist unfriendly environment in the computer science classroom because they have other options. It's not their only option. And it's very interesting to realize that actually we really like are filtering these people out by ways that we do not really realize that we are doing. And let's also say that if we talk about like girls versus boys, what we see a lot is this like perfection versus bravery way of socializing girls and boys. So for girls, also with the way we socialize them, it's more difficult to actually be brave and fail. Where in a computer science classroom in a school, you actually need to be brave to fail because each code will have a problem and it will not compile and you need to try again. And this kind of like mindset, like fail and try again and fail and try again and fail and try again, is something that we are like socializing boys for when they, for example, don't manage to get on some like big rock, but we don't socialize girls this way. So when they are facing this, it's actually very comfortable and going against the identity we are injecting in them. So with that, I want to like have this on a separate slide, that I believe that the dark side of biases is not really saying girls like dolls and boys like cars. The dark side of biases is that we tend to judge people's potential based on how their talent spectrum matches the talent spectrum of the already successful ones. So we look into computer science and see, yeah, all these computer scientists I see are typically this like target oriented. So if you get in a classroom are not target oriented, you'll probably not succeed there. So I will navigate you away. And often this navigating away is not really to harm the child, it's to protect the child. So when we were running studies among women, they were saying, yeah, like my parents discouraged me from going into computing because they wanted to protect me. They wanted something where they can envision I will be successful at. They wanted the best for me. And that's why they navigated me away from computing. So it's very interesting to realize and to put it also into this like reinforcement cycle that is happening. Because through this like funnel of education that filters certain individuals out, it creates disproportionate representation, which feeds stereotypes. And these make things even harder to gravitate back to the balance. So it's actually interesting also to realize how important it is to work with elementary school teachers, because their idea of like what it means to have a good fit for computing is still frozen back in times where knowledge was more important than skills and specialization was more important than this ability to integrate. So like talking with them actually to realize that maybe they are like this like misfit judgment is not matching the reality of nowadays is quite important. I want to emphasize this because also even if we think that's just a problem of schools because they are out of reality, it's kind of like unintentionally we are still having this problem visible even in job interviews of promotion criteria, even in academia. So we are often basing our promotion criteria based on the level in which we are able to show we are good specialists. Right. So if you, in many countries, if you want to be promoted from associate professor to full professor, they ask about like, what is the one expertise that you want to highlight and how far you got in that one expertise, right? They do not look into it is actually a disadvantage to have a multidisciplinary record because it's often interpreted as okay, you tried and you failed, so you tried again and failed, and you tried again and failed, so you won't be very good, right? And it's something that we do without realizing. And we do it in companies, in job interviews, where we first say, okay, here is a coding test. And after you pass the coding test, we will talk about like what you are strong in, right? And if you fail it, then let's say that like you are not a good fit for our company. So they do not even move to the next layers of the interviews if they do not show they are specialists. Yeah, so if we like look what we can do about it, then we are trying to do something about it in Chiquitas, and we are like working with also some studies on perspective-friendly computer science education to actually bring more perspective-oriented people and multidisciplinary natives into computer science, because we recruit software engineers from them and we recruit software architects from them. I've actually presented a study here in this track at one of the EXA conferences. I think it was the last year, so I will not go into the details. But if you were interested, I will be very happy to post links to one of the studies we published in Journal of Education and Information Technology on the effective measures to foster girls' interest in secondary computer science education. And also to this paper at EXA, which was on girl-friendly computer science classroom, Chiquitas experience report. Now, I mentioned Chiquitas a few times. I think it's worth just saying quickly what it is. So Chiquitas is a project that actually started from seeing that it's very difficult to find talents into tech, and still we see such a low representation of women in tech industry. Like in Czech Republic, we are on the last place in the whole Europe. According to Eurostat, it's only 10% of women in the tech industry. But with the work we are doing since 2014, we see progress, and we see at universities we are now having around like 15–20%. So like the situation is improving. In Chiquitas, we first started with just like some fun classes for girls, and soon started working with women and doing requalification programs, because Chiquitas became really, really popular in Czech Republic. So we always get like interest that is like strongly over the capacity of the courses we are having, although we are now having like hundreds of workshops and courses each year. We also work with children, with teachers, with school headmasters, which is very nice. I was actually yesterday on a conference talking about a future of education in the Czech Republic, with attendance also of the Minister of Education in the Czech Republic. So it's great that we are getting this visibility and we are getting opportunities to pass the message. But I would say that our core focus is adult women who want to change their career, because so often when you talk to girls, what you hear from them is that they would love to join computing, but they think it's too late. And they are able to tell you this, like it's too late, even if they are 15, because they see so many peers who started in the age of 6 or 7 or 8. So I think it's so important to actually work with the groups that want to get in tech, but they feel that they are not welcome or that it's too late for them to start. We are working with alumni. We are partnering with 100 companies at the moment, and we are running studies. So this study was recently published in the IEEE software, where we were studying frustration steering women away from software engineering. So under this title, you can find it in the library of IEEE software. And we were like, by the study of like 150 women, we were really like decomposing this like funnel actually into steps, saying that, yeah, for many women, what they mention is that as the first step, first problem is that they are not even being encouraged to pursue this direction. So it's this like access to encouragement that they are missing when they are little. So they do not even, it doesn't even cross their mind. And when it does, they are actually being, according to the stereotypes, actually protected by navigated away, by being navigated away by their friends and their family who wants the best for them. Then, like if they stay, so they resist in that funnel, then the confidence actually hits because they start to feel this like perfection versus bravery problem, and they feel they are not good enough, that they need to be stronger to be good enough. And then if they still persist and stay, they start feeling the problems of the sense of belonging, because they find themselves being like one of really few women in the classroom. And the last step is that actually what we often hear, that they are not feeling valued. And it's often because we actually, as a community, are not really giving credit to people who are more perspective oriented and who do not have a strong record in a single discipline, who do not have a strong record in like being specialist in one domain. And so often they are not respected by their colleagues, and what they like do as a kind of like survival strategy is that they mimic the competencies of the majority group. So they pretend they are strong in certain thing, and then they don't talk about like all those other competencies and interests they are having, which makes it more and more frustrating with time for them to be in that environment. And actually, it's good to say, like, these women are always a distribution. So there are many of those who have this stereotypical skill set, more common in the majority group. But what those are saying is that they are tired of proving them wrong. They need to keep, like, whenever they enter into new community, new team, new project, that they feel they need to prove them that they are good enough. And that's frustrating and really like exhausting. Yeah, so in Chiquitas, we are trying to do something about it and to inspire and empower new talents for stronger diversity and competencies in tech. And it's quite successful. So we are now running really like hundreds and hundreds of courses every year. It's around 30,000 women in our community. And what's important, like many of these women are actually mothers of young children who, and now like they will be their role models, right? Like if like for those little children, especially in the Czech Republic, where it's often the primary caretaker is their mom, if she's enthusiastic about tech, I think it will totally transform the way the children see technology as really being great fit for both women and men, and not just for men. So we are working not only with adult women, we are working with all different communities, and we are really happy about that. Working with companies, doing diversity programs in companies, doing different events. So next week we will be hosting this Women Courage conference that I have in one slide. So that is, yeah, I will just click through that. That is something that is my community work, and it's not the only community work. It was mentioned here that I'm a vice chair of the EU GAIN, the action within the cost action framework for like a European network for gender balance in informatics. I'll be very happy, like if you want to learn more about it, to share with you more details, because it's a big network of 38 European countries. And we are always happy to engage anybody who is investing into research, into gender balance and computer science. So I will definitely reach out to Stephanie, and if there are others who are into research in this area, I would be very happy to get in touch. Yeah, and the last point is the invitation to the Women Courage Conference. It is happening already next week, like 22nd till 24th. But still, like if you still want to join us, the registration is open till the very last day, like the 21st. We have like 20 invited speakers, plus like 20 other workshop and tutorial presenters, roundtables, poster sessions, networking opportunities. We have Slack where we already now have over 200, mostly women in computing, but we are welcoming to men in other genders. So we'll be very happy if people of all genders join us. So check it out. There will be lots of inspiration ongoing. And I will actually also tomorrow organize a pre-conference workshop for this conference. The theme of that workshop is how to get the best out of any conference. Because I believe that as like communities organizing conferences, we do too little to actually help people before they reach a conference to know how to get the best out of it, so that it's not that after the conference is over, they feel like they just flew through and did not really bring something home. Yeah. That's it. Thank you very much. Be happy for any questions or feedback. And thanks for your attention.
Yeah, many thanks, Barbara, for your interesting, inspiring talk. We have time for questions. It's also the last session of the day, so we can also take a few minutes more and answer all the questions. So does anyone have a question? I check chat. Oh yeah, okay, hands popping up. I go on. Ivica, maybe?
Yes, I will ask a question if nobody is daring to start. So thanks, Bara. Of course, it's always amazing to listen to you, how many activities you can manage, and that's amazing. It's really
I have 3
impressive.
people around myself, including the whole network. You are also in the network, so.
But I was when you were talking, I was thinking about this. What you mentioned is this holistic, multidisciplinary approach via this goal-oriented. And if you see I would say the industry today, but definitely like engineering, it's really like oriented to these short goals and like processes, agile, you know, you deliver everything every week, something every week. So it seems that the entire society today is kind of oriented of these small steps.
Yeah.
So you think that this is not in line for those people which are thinking more holistic way?
So what I believe actually is that, and that's there is a very nice book if you want to get it. It's actually about women in leadership, not in computer science, but like it translates very nicely. It's called Results at the Top, using gender intelligence for breakthrough growth, something along that lines. And what they say actually that it pays off because when you, for example, look at a decision process, right? Like what we do as software engineers and software architects, we make decisions, right? And there are good decisions and bad decisions in the long term. And what is visible when you have diversity at the table, when you're making decision, is that the more homogeneous group it is, the faster they are able to reach consensus and make a decision. The more diverse the group is, the longer it takes, but the better the decision is. Because you also integrate people who are more like, let's deliver, together with, let's be aware of the risks. So you do not run, it's called this like, it's like consensus bias or something like confirmation bias. So when you have like this target-oriented people making decisions, they will prioritize reaching targets while not being aware of the risks. And that's how, like in the long term, this kind of like this does not pay off. So when I talk to companies about this, I'm often saying like investing into diversity, especially also in these mindsets, like having more multidisciplinary mindsets, is an investment. You do not see results fast. It's an investment. As any investment, it will first sink your cost. But it will show the benefit in the long term. And also, like when people ask me, like, do all teams really need to be diverse? I tell them no, but whenever they are making decisions, they need to be diverse. So if they are just like working on an assignment, they need to be homogeneous. They can be homogeneous, but if they shall make decisions with effect for the future, there need to be diverse individuals at the table when the decisions are being made. So that's what I would say. Like, it's fine to have people working in increments, but whenever there are design decisions they are taking, in the meantime, they need this diversity in there.
Yes, and actually today's world is very diverse and very complex, and it's very integrated. So that's very important to. I think it's getting more and more this idea about having this overall picture. I would like just to mention when you said about thinking in the beginning, there is an anecdote from Lise Meitner. She was a Nobel Prize winner. So when she was working, and then every week she was supposed to write a report what she did, what she achieved during that week. And she would report it. I was thinking and that was for several years. That finally resulted in the Nobel Prize, but
yeah.
That's one example.
It's a very good point that actually the thing is that, you know, like if you have this like target-oriented people in leadership, they will often set the KPIs that actually make it very hard for this perspective and multidisciplinary oriented people to thrive. And that I think is a problem in academia as well, right? That we often have these KPIs for promotion that are not really reflecting that people are across disciplines. And they are not like the best in one discipline, but they are just like good enough in multiple, which makes them overall stronger, but it's not just reflected in the KPIs we measure them by. And that's actually like when people ask me like what to do for more women to be joining academia. For those who are perspective oriented, I would say to really like truly value this like non-stereotypical skill sets. Because sometimes feeling frustrated that you are not really valued for what you are bringing is what makes you to opt out from the discipline.
Thanks.
No one has questions. I have a question.
Yeah, Ingrid, please go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you very much for the great talk. And actually I have two questions. One, the second one just popped up by this last question. So the first one, when you mentioned about talking to companies about investing in diversity, it's for me the same speech we do for convincing them to do architecture models or using some code quality technique. I get it's always okay, we are user-centric, we are thinking about the user, and these other things has less priority. And it's really hard to convince them unless you really show the numbers that this payoff is being actually paid. So what you get in response when you talk this, like, do they buy that argument, or there is still resistance?
So when I give these talks in companies, so I did the whole, for example, diversity program in one company where I trained over like 100 managers across the Central Europe, including the like president of the Central Europe. It's a huge company, it's like Fortune 500 company. Then like I saw that typically these people who join these like trainings and seminars are people who are already like in, so they understand, they want to promote the idea, but they don't know how to explain it to others. So that's typically the problem. Like you have many people in these companies who say, I'm totally in, but like, what are the arguments? Because like, I will not succeed with saying, yeah, I support it, because I need to be the one convincing others. So whenever I like help them, I'm typically saying, hey, just set up a small incubator of a success case, because you only convince with success cases. So maybe go through that investment in a small scale and build a success case that you can present that is authentic and is within your company. So that is something something that helps, you know, like to really kind of having this like focus groups of where you can really like help these people like with different skill set to succeed by reverse mentoring and this like more personal sponsorships. But then like you need to build a success case because then you take the success case and you present it to others, and others want it too. And it's the same with these like when bringing innovation in a company. So if you go on small scale and you build a success case, other departments will want that innovation too, right? But you cannot just deploy it on a large scale at first. Like we need to be realistic. And it's good to realize that there are many people supportive in companies to invest into diversity. They just do not know like how to convince others because they do not have these arguments. So it's often helpful to like work with them in these more individual sessions, which helps them a lot. Yeah, EPEC.
Yeah, EPEC.
Hi, Barbara. Thanks a lot for the great talk. I have maybe a little, the question is from the other perspective. In working with these female engineers, software developers and whatnot, have you seen the other perspective? There's one way, okay, you don't value the different skills I might bring to the bear, but is there also a bias from the female population or other diverse populations that they don't necessarily always value the importance of the artifacts that are generated and how to bridge that? Or like, I think I've seen it from both perspectives as well. I wondered if you had any experiences or how you observed it.
Yeah, so actually, yeah, this is being reported, as something very common that you need to work with this like problem that often there is this like rejection on the side of a female population in a company that already reached some status. Actually, often when you look at the like skill set makeup of a company, these are women who are target oriented, right? Like who thrive because they match the majority population. And actually, to be fair, like in this environment where you have so few women, they needed to be competitive to get where they are. Like, and so, you know, like it's a trait that they continue exhibiting because without it, they wouldn't get there. Also, like when we did this study in IEEE, like published in IEEE software that I mentioned, where like we were comparing the two personas, like women who are in computing and women who are not in computing but would like to be. And when we were like studying these two groups, we find out that like one of the main differences is resilience. You know, like those who are in computing were just resilient. And so like if you look at the makeup of those companies where you have some women, these are the resilient ones, right? And so so it's quite natural like that there are these traits of behaviors and like nothing against. It's just like I think natural effect of like what it took them to get where they are. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other question?
I have my second question if no one's in the queue.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I had this second question. It's related to competition. If we observe on average, males are more aggressive and competitive. And something that I observe, I don't have any backup study to support that, is that usually you succeed because you are more resilient to survive the way that males play the game. So, for instance, if we take in academia, for example, people talk about how many papers at ICSI you have, age index, and these things are actually not that important, and create because we want to advance the state of the art, and it's like age index is not really a measurement of that, but it creates a competitive environment. And actually, this makes it easier for men to succeed because on average, they are more competitive and that they like to play this game. So don't you think that we are playing the rules according to an environment created by men, with rules created by men, and then it makes harder for women to succeed? And another example that I hear from women is the selection processes in companies. So they have nowadays this exams that they have to do in whiteboards in front of everyone. And I hear some people saying that's not for me because it's like, I don't feel comfortable in that because I don't like competitiveness. I don't like exposure because I'm an introvert. And we are, in this way, we have things nowadays, we are privileging people that are more aggressive and competitive. So what's your view on that?
I think you named many things that, like, as small themes, also were visible throughout the talk. That yeah, the KPIs are always set by my majority, and what I think is like what is making the problem even worse, that like many people of non-stereotypical skill set are trying to mimic this behavior, which makes them frustrated because they need to try harder. And we are all losing, right? Because they are just quieting their real talents to invest much more effort in the majority group to mimic what behaviors they are doing. So I must say, actually, personally, like, I am a perspective-oriented person. Like, I love connecting. And where I started to be successful, when I just like forgot about those KPIs, you know, like I started to be more authentic to like what really makes me thrive. And like, I love innovation, I love computer science, and it would be such a pity to me to try to be the best specialist in one thing when I feel so attracted to interconnect different disciplines. And you know what happened? Like, after a while, like, first you need to be really resilient to your own to your own kind of like that you doubt yourself, right? But when you are resilient against that, then after a while people start saying things like, how can you do so many things, you know? And I think, and I answer, because it's easy to do so many things. Like, for me, it's easy, and it's always been easy to do so many things. I just didn't do it, and I was trying to match, you know, like a profile that does not work for me, being exhausted with that. Well, now, like, I'm not exhausted, you know, like, for me, it's easy to do these things and to do so many things, and I love it. I really enjoy it, and it gives me lots of energy. So I think that's a way, like, after a while, people start actually admiring it. And what that makes is that you start building a different model, right? Because what we need is to give people like different models, but then also like what I think, like, some people think of us like more perspective people, that we are good in all those different things we do, and that's not true. And like, you know, also saying openly, no, I'm not the best in all of the things, you know, like, I'm on the surface. I like the interconnection, but that actually is attractive to people who are good in those different things, and it like makes it easy for me to make attractive environment for people to join my team. And you know, I have many specialists in my teams, so I think it actually in the end like brings those even KPIs and those publications, etc. We are having these 60 papers and things, but I do not think it's like my contribution. It's the team's contribution, right? Because like I create an environment in which they thrive. What is frustrating when people look at your papers and say, no, you do too much, like it's not your contribution, you know, like you do too much. It's just like, I don't believe that you contributed, you know, and that's something that I believe that those perspective-oriented people face, as these people like doubting that they have any contribution, because they do too many things. It's not possible that, you know, it's really their contribution. And that's I think like really nasty from us, you know, like matching these things. And I believe that with like more people being really authentic to their skill set, we can drop that like citation chasing game. But it takes courage to like, because for a while you just drop in productivity, right? When you are like searching for your authentic self, because maybe you do not yet have those members in your team. It's just you, and then like, yeah, the results drop for some time. You need to be able to say, like, who cares? Like, this is like, I love what I do and I want to give my talents to it, not try and mimic somebody else's talents.
Okay, we still have time for another question if someone has one. I think there was just a comment in the chat, and big thanks to Barbora for the talk in the chat, but no question. Okay, otherwise I maybe finish with one. So there was one sentence that particularly intrigued me, that the more diverse the architects are, the stronger the architecture is going to be. So this kind of reminded me to Conway's law that the system design mirrors the communication structure of an organization. So could there be another law, maybe Buhnova's law, that the software architecture mirrors the diversity of the team?
I believe that the strength of the architecture and its resilience, for sure. And also, like, when we think about engineering for the unknown, right, what we really need is actually to be more resilient, and diversity brings resilience of what we do. So that's the thing, like, I believe what is important, making decisions in diverse groups takes more time, takes more effort, but these, like, there are better decisions coming out of that.
Okay, thank you. Last call for questions, otherwise no. Then we all thank Barbora for the fantastic keynote.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was great to be here with you.
Thanks for having you here. Danny is also applauding. And this closes also the day of EXA today. Any other announcements by the general chairs?
No.
Okay.
We will meet tomorrow at 2:30 in Italy, and 2:30 something. Okay. Thank you, Bara. Thank you. Thank you all, Ingrid and Tom.
Thank you so much. And thanks for the invitation. It was great talking to you because you're my community.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.